Hello, everybody. For today's devotional, I have a special guest with me, my son Zebediah. Zebby, say hi to everybody. He's focused on his cookie. But as we share today's devotional, there's two thoughts that are in my heart in this season. It's God's will, and it's the hope that God brings. So let's look at Romans chapter 8, verses 27 and 28 together. It says, "And the Father who knows all hearts," God knows your heart, "knows what the Spirit is saying. For the Spirit pleads for us believers in harmony with God's own will." It's God's will. And God is interceding for us. And we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them. If you love God and you've been saved, you're a candidate to receive this promise of God, that all things might work together for your good and for his good. You see, Zeb's 2 now, but before Zeb, we had a desire to have another child, and we believed and prayed, and we had a couple of miscarriages. So when we got pregnant with Zebediah, we were fearful, and we were thinking that it might not end well, but we had hope. To the best of our ability, we hoped in God that God would grant us this pregnancy to have a baby. And the word hope means to anticipate something better. And we were anticipating something better than a miscarriage. And sure enough, God blessed us. And we had Zebediah, and he gave us Zeb. And Zeb's name means God has given us a gift. It's truly a gift that God gave us. But there's even a greater gift than something as precious and valuable as a life in Zebediah. And that gift that God's given us is our relationship with him, eternal life, hope in God. You see, prior to these verses, we hear this verse often, that God works everything out for his good pleasure. But here's the thing. The verses speak of hope prior to this verse. It speaks of a hope in God, that he's going to restore all things. He's going to restore creation one day. He's going to return and restore his people to himself. And today, in the midst of this virus, we need to have hope for something better. Not just hope for our finances, not just hope for gathering together in large groups, not just hope to return to whatever normal is, but we need to have hope for something better in God. Hope for our brother, our sister, our moms, our dads, our friends, our neighbors to receive Christ. Because this is the hope that God is speaking of. He desires that all men might be saved. He desires that you would be the light, that I would be the light of the world. I think of even the life of the Old Testament leader Joseph, that great man Joseph in the book of Genesis, that God raised up to save his people Israel. You see, his brothers threw him into a pit. They cast him away. He was sold as a slave. But at the end of that journey, Joseph turned to his brothers and said, "What you meant for evil, God meant it for his good." You see, God took Joseph's life and used his life to save others. And that's what Joseph declared in the book of Genesis. He said to them, God used my life. He used my circumstance to save lives. And isn't that what God is doing today in this pandemic? That the world might look at us as believers to bring about his will. And his will is that lives might be saved. So even as God has given me a life in Zebediah, my wife and I, he's given us Zebediah as life. God is looking to give ultimate life to the world, eternal life. This is the hope that we need to be seeking for in God, that God would use our circumstances for his will to be done, that people might hope in God. So let's surrender our hearts to that. Let's bring our minds to that and say, God, give us that hope, that the ones that we love, even the strangers, might hope in you. Yes, let's give God everything in our lives, but ultimately, let's say, nevertheless, not my will be done, but your will be done, God. Use my life that others might hope in you. So let's take that to heart today. God bless you. We miss you. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.